Hey everybody, it's Uncle Matt's D&D Neighborhood, and Jim Wampler is mimicking the pose that I've put myself into. He's my guest. He's been on the show a lot of times before. This time, though, we're talking about something different than D&D. We are talking about mutants, mutations, artifacts, things that go bump in the night, things that crawl over ruined worlds and apocalyptic terrains. And Jim's got a Kickstarter that's going on, which lets me focus in on this, although it's kind of gaming I've wanted to talk about for a while. So, Jim, take it away for a while. Let us have a glimpse into your apocalyptic visions.
Oh, it's I mean, everybody has their favorite RPG genre, and Post-apocalypse was mine from first edition Game World on. And it happened organically back in the day, as D&D was rolling out, and TSR would publish all those other little box sets. Me and my group, my brother, and all the guys I was hanging out with playing D&D would buy them all and play them all. And it would tend to be that, okay, well, my brother's not going to, he runs our D&D group. He's not going to want to run this. Who's going to run it? And I took Game World.
Is that the helmet in the background of your room? The helmet of the thing that's in the picture on the Check This Artifact Kickstarter page?
No, but that's an awesome chance for me to give a plug to the artist who did create that helmet. That's just Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy back there.
Okay.
But the when he cover art as a sole proprietor, I mean, Mud Puppy Games is my indie label where I just can publish my stuff, like the Marvin the Mage comic books. And budgets are tight, margins are slim, and I'm don't have $500 burning a hole in my pocket to go get a cover painting done. And I found this guy. I know him by his internet nickname. He's known popularly on the internet as Two Horns United. But his actual name is Brian Cargyle. He's a gentleman down in Florida where I used to live who specializes in post-apocalyptic costumes and props. And he's just a beautiful artist. And he built the suit, and that's him wearing the suit on the cover of the book in the Kickstarter.
That's freaking awesome. That is really, really, really cool. So that's an actual cosplay type of outfit.
Yeah. He's got an Etsy store and everything. Everybody should, if you just go internet search for Two Horns United Creations, you'll stumble across this stuff. It's great. And for what it is, it's not even that expensive. I mean, it's out of my ballpark. Like a nice helmet, $300, something like that.
That is cheap, because I think that the Stormtroopers pay more than that for the authentic Stormtrooper helmets, the 501st Legion and stuff. I've got a friend who's in the 501st Legion.
If I do more books in this little mini line after this, I hope to, we struck a licensing deal for his photos of him and his creations.
Nice. Okay, so, but tell us, all right, so there's the artist.
That was a deep dive right into a detail nobody that backs a Kickstarter cares about, except it's cool looking.
No, it is. I mean, I think people buy Kickstarters for a lot for the event of the Kickstarter, as well as for the actual content. I mean, I imagine that there are going to be a lot of people who don't necessarily have a post-apocalypse game going, that are still going to want to see your, take on the whole thing. Because, so I think that, people do like to know about the artist. They do like, that's, they like to know about the author.
Well, people like me do, because it all, bends and twists in and on itself. I mean, since I came up in the early days of the hobby, it wasn't anything for us to, run a D&D crew off to Gamma World and vice versa, because the first Dungeon Master guide told us to.
Right. Yeah.
So that kind of genre mashing. I mean, if you're only running D&D, I mean, this is a whole book of very strange magic items that, if not handled properly, will TPK your party. So
yeah,
what's not to love?
So give people an idea of what is in there. I mean, if you've got a super swords and sorcery D&D type campaign, does that work for that, or does it work with or does it only work with Mutant Crawl Classics, or is it going to work with Gamma World? What's the, I mean, is it system neutral?
Right.
What's the overview here?
Cover the basis. It's a 6x9, which is large digest size. I think I got, I thought I had a book handy. It's a little bigger than the little brown booklets, but so almost like large paperback size, 6x9, soft cover. There were some hard covers available. There might be some more later.
Okay, everybody, this
Um,
is what happens when you ask a question about the content of a book to someone who produces books. You hear about the size of it, you hear about the paper.
Oh,
I want to hear.
sorry. Thank you for leading me. No, it's a book. It's a supplement, and so as a supplement, it's a book filled entirely with 30 brand new post-apocalyptic artifacts and one supercomputer AI god that somebody in a RPG game could become a priest to and get lots of groovy spells from. And and the AI deity connects to one of those 30 artifacts, and the artifacts cover a super nice spread of, you know, sure there's some new weapons, sure there's some new armor,
Hi,
but
Kim.
there's also
Sorry.
what?
I said hi, Kim.
Oh,
there's
Kim
a chat.
George. Hi, Kim.
There's a chat room going on the side. So hey, Jason. Hey, Doug. Hey, Kim. We're talking about check this artifact, and we've got Jim on here. He wrote it. He's got a Kickstarter going on, and I'm not sure I put the link to the Kickstarter in the description. I can't change it right now. But if you look for check this artifact on Kickstarter, you can see the awesome cover that's got a guy. That's an actual rendering of a person. Hey, Jim. Okay, so we've done the whole
and that item on the cover is in the book, nanotech power armor. You definitely want a set of that stuff. So it's self-repairing.
So one of the things I'm hearing, actually, and this is, at least in the way that I read books, it is constructed as a book of things, but they are all in a context, and you can sort of derive really a world out of that context. And so in a way, it's kind of like a different presentation even of a world setting.
Well, I mean,
but flexible.
Even though this isn't an official Mutant Crawl Classics supplement, I wrote it, so it's very much of the same hand, because it naturally would be. But yeah, I mean, things work better that way. It's just a book full of artifacts, so you've got, stats, what it does, and an illustration for everyone. So kind of like a monster manual in that way. And I've always favored the approach of, if it's just going to be a book full of listings, how do you make that interesting? Will you create listings that each and every one is a potential plot hook or mini adventure of its own? It causes things to happen. You do it all the time in the game I play in.
I know.
So, but present that up front, give the GM a little something to work with. So it's not just hand your players this, piece of technology and let them start tearing up your world. It's like, okay, well, there's, can you control it? Does it obey you? Does it need power sources that you now have to go quest for?
Yeah, which is why I sort of look at that as being the skeleton of a setting, as well as being 30 items, because people who are used to D&D, the description of an item is not usually very long, but in this case, what they do is, it seems like it's a bit more like, I don't know, the old Pages from the Mages things that were in Dragon magazine that Ed Greenwood wrote. There's a lot more to it than the question of what are the stats of the item.
Yeah, like with plot hooks buried in the description somewhere.
And it's a hell of a D&D world, as well as a post-apocalyptic thing. You tweak this, tweak that, and you've got something that I could throw against your party, actually.
Yeah, my good friend and fellow podcast mate Mike Stewart told his D&D, or his Victorious game. And if you're not familiar, Victorious is a steampunk superhero game that Mike wrote, and he obviously runs a group at home in it. And he told them every one of them that pledged could pick one item out of the book and get it in game. And some of these things,
that's cool.
Some of these things are so OP, it's off the hook. But I'm not, with a competent DM, super competent DM like Mike, I'm no more worried about him doing that than I would be you.
Well, I wouldn't put stuff like that in the hands of the players. I would consider that to be just part of the DMG. It's part of the monster manual, like you said. So you've said right there, it's okay for me to just consider them to be monsters and use them against you guys.
Well, right. It's no artifact placement is no different than magic item placement. It should always be done thoughtfully and intentionally. And if the bad guy has it, then why isn't he using it? Well, he is going to use it. You got to
Right.
take it from him.
Right. Absolutely. What now? It's a relatively simple Kickstarter in that you don't have you're not building in the whole wow, I need more stretch goals kind of thing. It's basically people are buying a book. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I've collaborated on dozens of Kickstarters. This is the first one I did myself, and so it's just, it's a modest scaled product, on a modest scale budget, and no, I'm no Tom Tullis.
Right. Well, and we,
who among us really is?
Possibly, thankfully so.
I mean, if I shave my head, all you get is Walter White, not Lex Luthor.
Yeah, he's definitely able to sport a Lex Luthor with real style. No, the reason I bring it up about the stretch goals is because there's already a lot of discussion about hardcovers for it in the chat room. So, chat room people, if you want hardcovers, you're gonna have to go buy soft covers first. There's no way that there's gonna be hardcovers without some big sales. So go and pledge.
Well, and see, as a fellow, game company guy who produces books and has to, deal with the spreadsheets, you get it. But if you want me to, I'll explain the thinking behind it, because there's already been backer pushback / cheering for more hardcovers, because I only offered a level for the collector's edition hardcovers of 25. Well,
oh, that's what Guppy was talking about. Okay, all right,
yeah.
So you got some of the serious collectors pissed off because they didn't see it until after the limit had been filled.
Well, bless Guppy's heart. 5 out of 6 of his stories start with, "and this really pisses me off."
Yeah. Yeah. That's.
But it's weird. Where does Guppy even live?
I don't know.
Is he based
on a plane? On a
Texas?
plane, as far as I can tell, he lives on an airplane.
Well, one day he's like raging about the hardcovers on Facebook, and the next day I get a message from him. "Do you work in Blue Ash, Ohio? Is that part of Cincinnati?" I'm like, "Yeah, our office is in Blue Ash." And Guppy had flown on business to a hotel that's a block down the street from my office. So we had lunch yesterday.
Yeah. Well, it's collectors. Collectors seem to have, the two lives. They've got their actual life and personality, and then they go collector on you when there's a thing, Hang on 2 seconds. Let me stop my phone. You go.
So if you're a backer or thinking about backing this Kickstarter and you have any hesitation over not joining in because there aren't any more hardbacks left, and you fly to Cincinnati, Ohio to a hotel that's a block down the street from where I work, I'll take you to lunch and make it better.
And that was Zach pulling a Bill Webb of calling me in the middle of a video.
It's like they know.
Zach Glazer. Yeah, but he usually with Glazer, we usually joke about the fact that Bill calls in the middle of the video. So I was like, you're pulling a Bill Webb, and he's like, "Oh, I'll talk to you later."
Christ God Almighty! Yes, I am. Sorry about that.
God damn it, Zach. Jason, that's right. Rocky's got the thing. God damn it, Zach. I missed the real opportunity to say that to him too. Oh well.
For years I never got the goddamn it Zach thing, and then I became a frog and started working with him.
Now you were really offended by it at the beginning, but now you get it.
Well, they're talking bad about my buddy.
Yeah.
Then I started working with my buddy. Now I understand.
Yeah, you got to have someone to blame, and Zach accepts that he'll just be he'll be the person who's taking the blame for it.
So where were we?
I have no idea because
hardbacks.
Yeah. Okay.
Small indie game publishing label, and especially first Kickstarter. I didn't know how many hardbacks to include. The margins on the hardbacks are different than the soft covers, so I can't afford to do a thing where it's all hardbacks, where that would have been the Kickstarter. So I just made my best guess in advance. That pledge level was like gone within hours at launch. So I'm working on a solution. And it's not the final word in hardbacks.
How many people have you? I mean, just out of curiosity on things, because I usually don't really mind soft covers as long as they're perfect bound, because they will stand on a shelf. I don't like saddle stitched which for anyone who doesn't know is the staples down the thing because you can't see what it is. But I'm okay with soft covers versus hardbacks. But I know there are a lot of people who really like digest-sized hardcovers because they're like an actual book.
Oh yeah, who doesn't? That Free RPG Day book James Raggy did. I'm slipping on the title.
Yeah.
The one that was all
vaginas are magical, I think. What is that?
Yeah,
the one?
yeah. But yeah. How could I forget that title? Jeez. But
I was wondering.
But I was like making a beeline to my store to make sure I got one, and it's cool. It's just cool to hold a hardback that size.
Yeah, I didn't even realize it was a hardback. Yeah, no, people, there are some people who like hardbacks and some people don't. One of the things I have a minor problem with hardbacks is just being an I love books person. I have trouble writing in them because it's a book, whereas anyway. So we're getting way off in the weeds here, but so talk about running a post-apocalyptic game, because this is one of the areas where I'm patchy on running it because I can nail some of the descriptive stuff really well, and then it drops, and I'm like, and there's ruined buildings and stuff.
I mean, if you've been, Logan's Run just debuted on Netflix, and that is just like the worst, cheesiest 70s movie ever. It was dated like a year after it came out, right? But a year before Star Wars. But I goddamn love that movie because it's post-apocalyptic and it's got all the corn and all the cheese and all the retro. It was retro sci-fi when it came out. Now it really looks kitschy.
But that's kind of the thing. I mean, post-apocalyptic isn't necessarily. It's a fantasy genre. I mean, everyone knew by that point that if there's nuclear war, we're all dead. So it became a fantasy thing pretty early on. There's not going to be a survival of the human race. So this is like the zombie apocalypse. There's not ever going to be a zombie apocalypse. But if there were, here's a game in it, or here's a show in it, or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, there's like three ways to talk about this. The easiest way to talk about it is the context of gaming. The reason the post-apocalyptic genre you could, theoretically run just as easily as D&D is it's a very close genre match. To compare and contrast, I'm working on the superhero RPG that I went off and invented a whole different game engine for because I don't think D20 suits simulating superhero action the best. But I mean, Gamma World is just D&D with ray guns.
Yeah,
that's it. You're still a party of murder hobos. You're still exploring ruins and trying to kill stuff and kill monsters and steal its stuff. Now, I mean, at its heart, in a storytelling sense, it's a very wide and varied genre. I mean, I have my personal taste, but it can be very dark, very dystopian. The sun never shines through those, Matrix Revolution cloud cover, and everybody has to wear a gas mask, and all the way back to the 30s and 40s pulp fiction version of it,
right,
where it's very Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Yeah,
who wrote a post-apocalyptic book that I somehow got through my entire life without knowing about, and I just read it a few years ago.
What is that? I didn't know he wrote one either.
See, I'm all geared up to do this interview, and my memory's failing me. I want to say The Lost Continent, but it's it's Burroughs, so it's Burroughs. There's a guy, and I think it takes place in post-apocalyptic England, and a guy gets washed up there, and there's a tribal princess to save, and the usual stuff. But it was interesting what somebody in 1920 something thought the post-apocalypse would look like.
Oh yeah, and looking. I mean, I like the. Anything about what people in the far past, and anything 100 years ago viewed about the future. There's the communist views of what communist life in space is going to be. There's there's the Jetsons. I think we sort of haven't lived up to the expectations of our a few generations ago ancestors.
But I'm going to call you out because I happen to play in your D&D campaign, and there are a lot of very borderline genre mashing things you build into your own campaign, where there's a dead civilization that's been gone for thousands of years. We're digging up their stuff in the dungeon, and it's a weird kind of magic that involves technology.
Yep.
I mean, you're halfway home already.
Yeah. No. I mean, you could.
Not that hard.
if you continued dialing my campaign until it got to the stopping point, and then you pulled it a little more and it broke, and then you could turn the dial more, and you'd be in, a sort of science fiction mashup. I agree with that. That's swords and sorcery. I mean, there's almost always some technological element in the sword and sorcery stuff somewhere. It shows up in some story that somebody wrote about their hero.
It's like you've got just a giant, huge soundboard with all the slider bars that go up and down, and you can get those sliders in any combination you want. If you're running traditional high fantasy, high magic D&D, a little bit of genre mash goes a long way.
Okay, now we've got a good question, two good questions from Rocky. Okay. One of them is, he says, I know a lot of people have been interested in Jim's map. Can he tell us a bit about it?
Sure. That's the campaign world that we play tested Mutant Crawl Classics in. I felt like it was the right thing to do to rename it slightly to something that's not, what do I want to say? I just don't want to
not the intellectual property of another company. Right?
Yeah. And not out of any bitterness on my part, just, fair is fair and play by the rules.
Yeah.
But that's the continent of the campaign world that my crew went through. Because I could. That's another situation where I couldn't afford Alyssa Faden, so I had to just pony up and figure out how to do the best emulation I could, and it's pretty good. It's no Alyssa, nobody is, but I'm like,
well, what is Alyssa wouldn't have been free anyway. She's working so hard on the Teagle Manor map right now that.
Well, there's that too, but and what does a cratered continent look like? And stumbled across all this NASA scientific art about the Hadrian Age, when the asteroid belt was still pounding the Earth. There were oceans and there was life, but we're getting pummeled. And studied some of that art to come up with a cratered continent with a big desert on it.
Mm-hmm. And that actually leads into the next question that Rocky asked, which was some history. He wants some history of what the apocalypse was.
Well, I could speak to it in two ways. In the game system I wrote, Mutant Crawl Classics, it's left intentionally mysterious so that individual GMs can fill in their own backstory, which is the way I think, if I remember right, Gamma World started out. I might be thinking of Metamorphosis Alpha. The more you nail it down, the less mysterious it is. And what I'm going for anyway is that pulpy pulp magazine 30s, 40s thing and the appendix end literature.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it would be really, really interesting to have to run a game where it was like, you don't know what the apocalypse was. All you've got is remnants,
Well, right. And in all reality, you wouldn't know, and it might take you and everybody you ever have as children generations to figure it out. But not to dodge the question, Rocky. In my mind's eye, in my universe, there was a 30th century Vancian dying Earth society, super science, and I like super science more than literal 21st century science, because then it can be made of imperishable substances and inexhaustible power sources that would actually still be there for the players to find 10,000 years after that. So they were trucking along great until they weren't.
Right. All right. What else have we not covered about the book or the Kickstarter or the genre? What else is out there?
First and foremost, I feel a obligation just to thank everybody that already jumped on board, because I didn't know, when I put it in an update that, it's all well and fine to be sitting at home working on your passion, but then you got to get up on stage and present it in one of these Kickstarters, and you're never sure, or at least I'm not, how many people share that passion. And it funded in 9 hours and hit its stretch goal on its third day. And I could, it's already funded, so there will be a book, and everybody that's backing is getting one. So I couldn't be happier, and thanks to everybody who jumped in and helped make that possible.
And I'm sure more people will too. I mean, I haven't pledged to it yet, so you still got me on board. I'm sure a lot of the people watching, because one of the it's really hard.
Zach jumped right in, but he owes me a couple because I went in for both lesser known Kickstarters.
But yeah, the publicity on things like this is is very hard to do now. In terms of Facebook, how their algorithms work, and there's the same thing on YouTube as well. Is just a question about how to get the word out, and that's one of the is one of the various reasons why I like to get people on the show when they're doing a Kickstarter. The other thing about it is that when people are doing Kickstarters, they tend to be clearer in their thinking about whatever it is that they're doing on the Kickstarter. So like, Douglas Cole, when he was doing Dragon Heresy, he was able to articulate lots and lots of things that had sort of come together at the time of the Kickstarter, and clarified his viewpoint on it. So that's a great time to talk to people about what they're doing. What have you, I mean, what are there any insights into post-apocalyptic gaming or artifacts or things like that that sort of sprang up at all while you were just getting ready for it, or that have
In terms of the marketing, or just in general?
No, in terms of the game. I mean, are there things that occurred to you that are new tips, new approaches, anything like that sort of came up?
Well,
And
not
the
per
answer can
se.
be
I
no.
mean, the book itself was just born out of I'm sure everybody who's a writer or an artist or creator knows, if you've got a giant project that you have to hammer on day in and day out, which for me is Mega Heroes, the superhero RPG, you need a little palate cleanser every once in a while. So this is only maybe 15,000 words, and I just wrote it off on the side months and months ago, and it was my back burner project. I'd return to it periodically, and okay, well, now it's time to get it copy edited and send it to Tim Kask, who's the editor on the book, and got a copy edited. And then it came time to lay it out, and I decided the timing was good to go ahead and punch the button and put it out there. And this is so tangential to what you actually asked. I'm hitting check marks in my head. Found some great artists to do it. Mm-hmm. For what I could afford to pay, including James V. West, who, if anyone doesn't know that, James does his own OSR fanzine called Black Pudding. You can go get it on Drive-Thru RPG, and he's a fantastic. Because I'm a polymath, I adore other polymaths. James is a great game designer, a great cartoonist, and a good writer. And Dan Smith is doing some work, and he came and found me. It's one of those weird ass things where Dan has been doing RPG art since GURPS days in the 90s, and is a for real legit comic book artist and game designer on his own. But and I didn't know him, and he apparently backed MCC and was a big fan of it. And when he saw the announcement go up, he came to me. He saw exactly what triggered him was I'm doing art in the book, because that's one more piece of art I don't have to pay for.
Right.
And I'm by far
no, Jim. You say I decided that I was going to do some of the art in the work so that I could take more artistic possession of what it was going to look like.
I wish that were true. I wish that were the case. I just do the best I can. We've talked about this a lot. I can spend an entire weekend murdering myself at the drafting table to come up with something that's 15 or 20% as good as a Jeff D. So why wouldn't I just go spend the money and hire Jeff D? That's my attitude on the whole thing. But anyway, I'd posted some little piece of art I did for the book, and this Dan Smith cat came and found me and said, let's talk. Because he had backed MCC and he was already a fan of the game.
That's awesome. So, I mean, and it's got, so there's a lot of, I like things that have got a lot of fan input into them. There is much more energy, I think, behind things that are really fan driven, a lot more energy behind the things. I mean, you called it a palate cleanser, but the thing is that I think that when you're working on one big project, it really creates this sort of, geyser like pressure on whatever else it is that's in the back of your head. And I think, when you see those projects, you can really get that feeling of the sort of pent up energy, the real, punch that's behind a lot of the smaller things that go out there, from the small publishers, the indie, the true indie press of the gaming industry.
Yeah, and I'm a fan of a lot of the little, indie small press stuff, like David A. Hill's Avamir, and some of the stuff James Michael Spahn does on his own. Anything that piques my interest, I buy it, and I freaking love collecting that stuff, because because that's the stuff that'd be like having, Arduin Greenmore,
Right.
30 years later, 30 years from now. God help it, I live that long. Those will be my most prized possessions. Look what I got back in the 20 teens,
And speaking of James Spawn too, it occurs to me that this kind of thing would work with White Star as well. Apocalyptic is a really interesting hub that connects with a bunch of different genres. I think it's just so ingrained in people who were alive during the Cold War. I think it's just got this mythical sort of quality to it.
Dude, I gotta say, I started MCC so long ago. I was a little bit worried because when I was a teenager and a kid, Commandy, Last Boy on Earth, Logan's Run, Planet of the Apes, it was an age where we all knew sooner or later there was going to be a nuclear war, and kind of had it in the back of our heads. It was very much part of the culture's zeitgeist. So am I pronouncing that right?
Zeitgeist.
And around about 2012, DCC comes out, and I see the perfect opportunity to write the game I always wanted to write. But I'm like, but is that still true? And I didn't know the way things were going to go. Well, I think the world helped me out with the cultural zeitgeist because it came back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that I think for a long time people have wondered what it would be like if civilization collapsed. I mean, I think that's the question that got carried forward from the Cold War. Was not so much, okay, we're all going to die in a nuclear war, which, I think most of us believed that, we were going to die in a nuclear war. But there's still the question of what happens if civilization collapses, because we're seeing it get more and more fragile as a result of technology. I don't know how to farm potatoes, and it's just that sort of, and I think that's what the zombie apocalypse stuff is about too, is what happened.
Well, yeah, this has got frack all to do with the Kickstarter, but I love it because it's interesting. I was articulating, my teenage response in the 70s to what I thought was going on in society. And now that I, am much older and have studied a lot more, I understand it's just a part of human nature. There's never been a culture or society at any time in the entire history of our species that didn't think it lived in the dark times preceded by a golden age, and that there wasn't some, millennium going to come around and destroy everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they thought that in the year 2000, they thought that in the year 1000.
Yeah, but I think the difference in the apocalyptic approach is the question of what if we're the golden age? What if it's us, and that it's all come apart?
I mean, I can't help the way evolution wired our brains, but that's the truth of it. Is, I mean, there's never been a better time in the entire history of Earth to be alive than this moment right now.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true.
Star Trek's back on television again.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, thanks. There's that allows me to make a great segue to absolutely nothing, Jim. So, yeah, okay. Star Trek's back on TV. I don't know where to go from there. You got to take it.
There are 3 devices in this book that allow the players to start using transporter technology and all the fun and horror that can come along with that, because I really thought it through. Basically a mobile suicide booth, and a copy of you pops up over there.
Right. Yeah, that's
have fun.
that's a Jim Ward sort of thing.
Well, I pay attention and learn all I can from all the guys before me.
How much inspiration?
I'm not paying any attention to the questions. Are you watching the questions?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was really interested in the question of the sort of Jungian. Have we got a new Jungian archetype of the collapse of civilization? The thing about are we the last generation? What happens if it falls apart? I don't know how to grow potatoes, but so that's sort of where I
grew up in the 70s, so I know my post-apocalyptic skill is I can ferment anything with sugar in it.
There you go.
That's how I'm going to get by. Yeah. And my brother's got a crap ton of guns. We're set.
He'll be able to defend the still. You're going right back to your roots there.
Yeah.
Okay, so give a I mean I'm really curious about the AI god. It was an AI god that you've got in there.
Yeah, yeah. Because the book is system neutral, you will hear me trip over words because I also wrote Mutant Crawl Classics, and I don't want to use the same terms just for sake of confusion. For people that are back in the Kickstarter, this is a system neutral book, and I mean your mileage may vary. There's nothing in this book I couldn't GM on the fly in Gamma World, Darwin's World, anything with any game mechanic that's D20 based, you're set. And obviously because I wrote it, it also works well in Mutant Crawl Classics.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to fit like a jigsaw puzzle with Mutant Crawl Classics, but it's the question is the other games, how well it's going to work in there, and that's it sounds like it's going to work in well. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very excited about this Kickstarter. I'm just sitting here, big ball of enthusiasm. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm just having one of those days. This is one of the things, you have days where you say something and then you're just like, okay, take it away. And it's like, you didn't give me anything to work with, so I can't. And I know you're in that situation where you're like, Matt, you're finishing sentences that don't give me anything here. It's like the volleyball game.
Well, no, I feel bad because I'm answering with everything but the answer to the question you just asked, like I'm on freaking CNN running for Congress.
We got a question from Rocky again, which is, what's your favorite artifact in the book?
Oh, boy, that's like trying to pick your favorite child. Mm-hmm. Let me pull the table of contents up. Well, it's the first thing my eyes lit on, so I'm just going to... No, I should pick one that will help sell the book. Oh, fuck it, I don't care.
You should pick your favorite. Which one's your favorite?
It's time to put the energy drink down, Jim. There are some artifacts in this book that go all the way back to my original Gamma World campaign, and one of them is a RDRR, who is a comedy droid that the players will pick up and get basically if they master it, they get a totally worthless robot, they think, because all it can do is tell bad jokes. Uh-huh. It was a comedy droid, but it turns out it's got a 24 strength. If you stick with it, turns out its face is a screen that can change appearance to whatever face you tell it to do. So good for getting around security devices. And because my players figured out how to do this in Gamma World, he comes with all these slots on his arms and legs and torso that are for snap-in comedy props, but work just as well for maser rifles and laser pistols and grenade launchers, if you got them.
So multi-purpose discovery of what it is that it can do. I like to, I love it. Hang on a second. I love magic items and artifacts and things like that where it's unclear what they do at the beginning, and you can discover more and more about them, both good and bad, as you go on.
And if and the write-up in the book, if you are not as gifted at horrible puns and dad jokes as I happen to be, there's a whole table of them there. So you just roll randomly. And
wait, you've got a table of dad jokes in there, Rocky, man.
Yeah. Okay, well maybe we are selling the book, Liz. There's no rumor table in this book, but there is a whole table of bad jokes and dad jokes.
You've got to. Okay, so you know what yeah. There's a table of bad jokes in a book. You got to get a hold of the book that's got the table of bad jokes.
So see, you're gonna back it as soon as you get off this interview.
Yeah, I'm gonna back it probably tomorrow morning. But yeah, everyone else is gonna back it during the interview, though. How's it doing?
I will say this.
Pull it up. Have we made any sales, or are we waiting for the aftermarket? Let's take a look here.
Oops. Got like 3 tabs open of Kickstarters.
Because this validates me,
Oh yeah, look at that. We're up 3 backers since we started the broadcast.
Excellent. All right, way to go, chat room. So we've got.
What did I want to say? That if you like the kind of thing that I love writing, there's a bazillion Easter eggs in this book. Where someone who's 18 or 20, it will just be a cool artifact. Somebody in their 30s or 40s will go, oh shit, that's the Sandman gun from Logan's Run, except it works like the one in the book, not the movie, which is badass.
I've heard that the book is
Those
really
kind of
good.
Easter eggs.
I've heard that the book Logan's Run is actually really good, and I thought that it came out. I mean, I saw the book in bookstores, but I thought it was one of those things where they write a book about the show or the movie rather than it being something that actually came beforehand. But I've heard that it's a really good book.
There's a thank you credit in the book to two of my players in my home gaming group, James Smith and Rick Hull, because they both accidentally contributed to the book. And Rick Hull, it was just we were talking about the book, and he's just like, hey, remember that one Twilight Zone episode? No, the other one just like it. No, the other one just like that. And then all of a sudden I went, oh, that's genius. Okay, there's an artifact that's going in the book.
Cool. So yeah, and I mean, I did notice the fact that the useless robot had the R2D2 sort of pattern on the name.
Well, RDRR, get it?
Yeah, to be a useless robot that turns out to be useful later. I saw what you did there.
Okay,
I got that reference. All right, awesome. Well, let's.
There's another artificial intelligence that if the players encounter him and don't come to a successful conclusion of that discussion, it could end all life on their home planet. You know?
Okay, that's useful. That's useful. That's
no playing around. It could happen.
That's the I want to see how you guys do when you roll up new characters artifact.
Yeah. So no pressure.
All right, cool. Well, let's so the Kickstarter again, and I will put the link down there in the description, but when we're in a live video, it doesn't let me edit the face of the video, and it has to then process. So it'll be, I don't know, a half an hour or so before I'm able to actually
the normal stuff. It launched this past Monday for 21 days, so that means it will end on the Monday of first Monday of March 4th, which is I think the week of GaryCon. So it'll end right before GaryCon starts.
Okay, and then I'll put the link down in the description to the video. If you're watching this later, then the time that the Kickstarter, if you're watching this some days later, that way people will be able to go and get the link and back to Kickstarter, because there will be a lot of people who watch this later on. So
can I get on a soapbox for a second?
Yeah, get on a soapbox. Up you go.
I just did this as an update because it's an issue I feel strongly about, because the truth is, if it weren't for Gateway Games and More, which is my friendly local game store, and the proprietor Todd Bunn, there never would have been a Mutant Crawl Classics, because I invented the game there. We play tested it when it was only 40 pages of broken rules, and it's so easy in this day and age for us to buy everything on Amazon and get all our gaming goodness like on live stream games and stuff like that. But the brick and mortar gaming store is the linchpin that holds the whole thing together, because that's where you go to get your questions answered from a guy that knows the history of that game system from the beginning of all time and space to last week. And you can meet people there in person. And, the model has changed, and it's not as much of the sales. But without it, I don't think we have a gaming hobby anymore. So there's a wholesaler level. If you want this game and you feel similar to how I do, I make this call every time I back a Kickstarter. It's like, am I going to buy it through the Kickstarter, or am I going to wait till the book comes out so I can buy it from Todd? That's always an equation. There's a wholesaler pledge level where a wholesaler just contacts me, and I get happy that they're a real brick and mortar store, and at a 50% wholesale discount, they can get 6 copies of the book. And if you want to do it that way as an individual customer, just call your game store guy and say, hey, go get this book.
Okay, that's
it was important to me to do that.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you brought it up.
I don't mean to get all preachy and wound up about it. I just
no. I mean, there's there's a whole thing there, and I agree with you. And there's a whole conversation there about what the role of the friendly local gaming store is in the gaming industry, because, like you said, the model's changed, which is an interesting thing. But I don't want to follow it up now, but I'm glad you brought it up, because I had forgotten that you had a wholesaler level on the Kickstarter. So,
do I make as much money on those books? Nope. Is it totally worth it to do it anyway? Yep.
Excellent. All right, cool, Jim. Let's go ahead and we will sign off. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll go ahead and end it with the the tagline that we always do of whatever kind of Dungeons and Dragons it is that you play, imagine the hell out of it.
The hell of it.
Yeah.